So welcome back to YouTube. This is actually we're going to do it every month where there's a specifically Meg focused kind of video that you get. Obviously I'm not running up my channel anymore because we're doing this one together, but we are going to do some that are obviously more specific to Cuba and then obviously more specific to me because we're very different people. There's probably different angles that we can both go through. So that is the crack. That's what we're going to be doing. In regards to me, what's going on at the moment, obviously I am 7 weeks post show now. Feeling quite good, to be fair. Feeling happy, feeling healthy, feeling full. It's 12 days until we actually get married. No, 10 days. Oh god. So everything's a little bit stressful at the moment. We're trying to organise the last little final bits and people wanting to do Zoom calls here and there. I'm hoping that the country doesn't go into lockdown before, because I can't be bothered with trying to organise it again. If it happens and we go into lockdown, I'm just going to elope. Sorry, Bob. Because these last little few weeks have been a little bit more stressful than what I anticipated. But yeah, getting all of that sorted. Obviously training is going really well, focusing really hard into that. Obviously now back into basically full volume training and also into kind of pushing to failure as well. Increased a little bit of volume into my sessions, also started doing some movements again, like the hip hinges. We've started with the RDLs, and you'll actually see those today because we're actually hitting up hamstrings, which is obviously a real big focus of mine. But yeah, that is the plan of attack today. So I've got some bits to sort out with our accountant. I've got some bits to sort out with some of our online banking-y stuff, and then we're also going to go to the gym. I'm also going to do a little chat around balancing work, so normal work, so like a 9 to 5 job, with bodybuilding, and how kind of, I'm going to say easy because I've done it, so I'm allowed to say it, how easy it can be if you obviously attack it in the way that I'm going to chat around it. And then also with juggling that with bodybuilding, and then maybe juggling it with trying to set up your own online coaching business or any other self-employment bits as well. So we'll have a chat around that in a little bit, but for now I'm going to crack on with a little bit of admin work before we get ready for the gym.
That cup of coffee big enough, Nick?
It's absolutely bloody massive. I don't know how many he's put in there. It's definitely a lot of coffee.
You'll be bouncing off the walls.
Hopefully.
How are you doing today, big guy?
Fantastic. Absolutely tremendous. Static. Ready to go and train hamstrings. But first, get the pre-workout meals in ready.
So, wanted to chat around how to manage or juggle your time effectively if you are working in kind of full-time employment, 9 to 5 normal jobs, alongside them being able to be a bodybuilder. Like, what it simply does come down to, and it's probably something that I should say at the end rather than at the beginning, but I wanted to say at the beginning, is if something means enough to you, you have time for everything. It's like when someone says they don't have time to do X, Y, and Z things, it's just because they don't have the love for it, they don't have the desire for it. You'll be sat speaking to someone at work, and I can say this because I've been in that office environment, I've been in that 9 to 5 situation, worked with teachers, worked with people in the corporate world, and they'll always say, oh, I wish I had time for exercise, or I wish I had time to be able to go to the gym. And simple fact is, they do when you do have time to be able to do those things. It's just about managing your time a little bit more effectively. And to some people, it's probably not worth it because they don't enjoy it enough, they don't get enough love from it, they don't care about it enough to be able to do that. And unfortunately, you're seen as a person who has control in your life, and that's not a good thing if you want to be able to manage everything, because you do have to have an element of being in control of your day. So take it, for example, when I used to work in full-time employment. Obviously, I knew that I worked different shifts. I'd either be starting earlier and finishing earlier, or I'd be starting later and finishing later. So what I used to do is I actually used to make 2 schedules. So I had my weekend, like day off from work schedule. I had my morning shift schedule and then my afternoon shift schedule. So I knew that if I had a training day on that day, that it could fit at X, Y, and Z time. My meals needed to be eaten at X, Y, and Z time. And honestly, when it comes to the meals, I used to sneak off and eat them in the toilet, in the disabled toilet. And there was people that used to sneak off and have a cigarette for 5 minutes, or they were allowed to have a cigarette for 5 minutes. And I think that if you sit there and probably speak to your manager and explain to them that this is something that you're quite passionate about. I've been really lucky at every single job. I've had a conversation with the person who was my senior and said, look, I need to go and eat a meal at X, Y, and Z time. It's going to take me 5 minutes. That's literally what someone would do if they were having a cigarette break, which is allowed. And every single person and every single kind of working environment that I've been in has allowed for that to happen. So having that conversation, and it's an uncomfortable, awkward conversation for you to begin with, but it just means that you can actually have your meals at that time. So creating a schedule for your shift days, if you do work shifts, making a schedule for your weekends to make sure that it kind of runs in synergy with that, to make sure that meal times aren't off too much, to keep that digestion there, to keep that consistency there, and for you to stay nice and happy as well. Another thing as well, obviously splits are a big fashion at the moment. So obviously me and Kirby used to train with the push-pull off legs off. Now we do something that is slightly different, that works better for us and the focus that we need for our body parts. Your coach, and if they're like a sound great coach, you need to have that conversation with them and just say, look, these days don't work well for me, because you can train on set days and still make ridiculous progress. At the end of the day, if you have set days so it makes your stress lower, you will be better recovered, your sleep will be better, your bodybuilding will be better, you'll make more progress, because you've not got that stress of, oh my god, I need to be here, there and everywhere at this one specific time because of the type of work that you do. Like, not everybody's work is 9 till 5, not everybody's work is the same as what mine was. You have people that work shift work, you have people that work in the hospitals that do night shifts. Like, you've got to be able to create a routine and create a split by speaking to your coach as to what is going to work with you. Like I say, it's possible to be able to do it, but it needs to mean enough to you to want to create this schedule, to create the habits that you can input into whatever it is that you're doing, and be able to have that conversation with your coach to be able to manage your time so that you can come up with a split that will work for you. And then another part of it is then trying to be in full-time employment, doing your bodybuilding, and then possibly trying to push into self-employment. And that might be online coaching, it might be like, Ed, you want to become a videographer? It could be anything self-employment wise that you want to be able to push to develop and grow. And the one thing that you've got to remember when it comes to that, because when you're juggling work with bodybuilding, you still have time to have social time at the weekend, in an evening. You do have time to be able to do that. When it then comes into play of you wanting to, you'll not have as much social time with that aspect as your kind of friends in work. But again, if it means enough to you, it doesn't matter that social time is a little bit lesser. I guess your gym time, that 5 minutes before you train and 5 minutes after, could be seen as your little bit of social time that you would normally have with your partner, etc., on an evening. But when it comes to trying to juggle then, coming into self-employment, it's hard. Like, it's really hard. I remember when I was working full-time at the bank, doing all of my bodybuilding with my work, obviously doing all of my bits that I was doing with the house and normal kind of life bits, alongside then trying to juggle my self-employment bits with trying to push my online coaching. It was a really difficult time, but because I knew that I wanted to be successful with online coaching, because I knew that I still didn't want my work to fall through, and I still wanted to be good at that until the moment that I finished, in case online coaching didn't work out, or in case something didn't work out. I needed something in place to fall back on still. So I still needed to give a lot of energy into my work, and then obviously a lot of energy into my bodybuilding, alongside then prepping for a show as well. So again, it comes with time management. You have enough time for everything, you just have to be able to schedule your day. And when it comes to trying to become self-employed, and you're already employed by an employer, unfortunately you won't have a lot of social time, and you've just got to deal with the fact that you're not going to have a lot of you time. And if it means that you give up on that for a little bit of time until you can actually get yourself on your feet with your self-employment, it is worth it in the long run. Like, I'm now at a point where obviously I've been able to get rid of my normal banking corporate job, because I built up my online coaching alongside that to make sure that I was financially stable to be able to let go of the other job before I started just doing full-time full-time online coaching as well. So you've just got to remember that you're not going to have a lot of social time. You're not going to be able to do what your friends are normally doing, that work the 9 to 5, that don't have the bodybuilding, that don't have the online coaching push as well. So it all comes down to if you want to do it or not, because you'll be able to know yourself if you do or if you don't. Because if you do, you'll do it, you'll grit your teeth, you'll push through it, and part of you will really enjoy it. If you don't enjoy it and you see it as something that's restricting you, just don't do it. Like bodybuilding, if you see it as restricting your life, don't do it. Juggling that with work and bodybuilding, and you see bodybuilding is restricting, don't do it. If you see then you're pushing for self-employment as being something that's restricting you from not being able to have a life away from your bodybuilding and your work, don't do it. At the end of the day, the people that put it down to not having enough time and not being able to juggle everything together are the people that don't have enough time management skills, which is something that your coach or someone should be able to support you with, or you just don't simply want it enough. And if it's the case that you simply don't want it enough, have that serious conversation with yourself. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Stop saying that you don't have time to do this, that and the other, and just crack on.
Do you want to run us through today's session, Meg?
Now?
Yeah.
So we're just off to the gym to train hamstrings. The first exercise is, what is the first exercise? Oh, I have hip thrust today as my first exercise.
Well, you're going to have kickback to start with today. Well, I'm moving your kickback from end of the session to start of the session.
So, I used to do kickbacks at the end of the session. Now I'm doing them at the start of the session. Then we're going to move on to a hip thrust. Then I have paused RDLs. Then I'm moving on to a dual leg high and narrow leg press, which I was doing the single leg press before, but I just get a lot of quad, so we need to make it.
Well, we're going to use the prime leg press dual in length and range.
Yeah, so we're gonna use the prime machine. Well, I'll show you how I set it up when I set it up. But yeah, the single leg press just wasn't working for me, so we need to change it, and then move on to the adductors and then that's it. So it's a short session.
Well, seated leg curl and then adductors.
Yeah, seated leg curl and then adductors. So it's a short session, but it's a tough session, especially because hamstrings aren't really a strong point of mine, so they're not really the I don't know. I just like this session. It's one of my favourite sessions, so I'm excited.
Presents from SPD for me and Meg. Here we go. Beautiful. Just in time, just in time. Oh man. Absolutely tremendous. Look at that.
Oh, I've got a severe pump. Might not look like it, but I do.
Probably not. Yeah, so when I used to do a glute kit back when I didn't know how to train glutes, and I'm not saying that I have big glutes now, but I feel like I know how to effectively work them. That's why we've seen some good progression over the last kind of 12 months. But the range of motion for anything glute really is quite small. So if you have a look at my hip thrust when I do that in a second, the range of motion there is quite small. Here, if I take it any further up, I'm literally just arching my back to get it up, and that's not me using my glutes. So yeah, staying in the range of motion where I'm actually really squeezing is going to allow me to develop some glutes at the top rather than just at the bottom. Sure that your heels are pretty much directly underneath your knees when they're on the foot pad. Foot pad. You don't want to have them too close because then you'll use your quads too much, and you don't want to have them too far away because that's just going to do fuck all. So you want to have them pretty much stacking right underneath your knees. You want to make sure that your feet are shoulder width apart, if not a little bit wider, just depending on where it feels most comfortable for you. Turning those toes out and making sure that those knees are turning out the whole time. You want to make sure that as you come down, you're focusing on still keeping those hips underneath you as you come down. The range of motion, you don't want to be really hitting any far past 90 degrees with your knees, really, if you do need to go that far. And then you want to focus on really rolling, not driving your hips through, but rolling the hips through, almost like a rolling hip bridge, all the way through to the top, getting a real good squeeze with your glutes at the top before you then come back down. Obviously do it however you want. This way might not work well for you. This movement might not work well for you. So if you don't actually get a good connection with your glutes even when you're doing it correctly, then maybe it's just not the movement for you to be able to do. So always work with movements that do work well for you. Keep communicating with your coach, see if they can work through it with you, and if you just need to find something different, find something different. It's only now through manipulating things that we've found a real good way that actually works for me. Someone who really does find it hard to develop and connect well with their glutes.
Take that one!
Fuck off.
Fucking stress trying to get it.
So we split off our hamstring day and back day basically because both are pretty weak. So to get the most out of both of them, they kind of need to be separate, because at the end of the day, if we were doing a density session and we were doing back at the beginning, it would take away from the glutes and hammies part. And then on the flip side, if we were doing glutes and hams at the start, it would take away from the back part of the pull day, of the density day, sorry. So we always know that regardless of how good your recovery is, regardless of how much of an animal you are, you do fatigue more towards the end of the session. So to make sure that obviously both get as much emphasis, that's why I've got them split. Could make a funny joke.
This is a child.
Take your drink! Oh, now, hard! Yes! There we go, that's it!
Racket.
I put this on setting 3, which is the lengthened position. So basically that means that it's hardest really right at the top, which is where I am the weakest. So that's where we're loading it. Obviously here I can get in a good enough stance to be able to really target the quad on the kind of 45-degree leg presses. I find it really hard. Other people probably won't, but for me, and the way that I work, unfortunately, I struggle. So that's why I favour more this machine for when I'm trying to target the glutes. So hopefully it will make me have some large glutes. Fingers crossed. I can get my quads. Before I started, you need to make sure that the pivot of the machine is in line with your knee. If you're a little bit too far forwards or a little bit too far back, you're not going to be able to get a real good connection to the full length of your hamstring, because obviously you can manipulate it in terms of, if it's just a standard machine, you can have a hold in the hole, a hold at the top to create the most tension in kind of the lengthened or shortened. Obviously we are very fortunate at UltraFlex to be able to have the prime setting where we can put the load in either in the lengthened range, the mid-range or the full range. So it all comes down to however you do with that. But with the setup, you need to make sure that your knee line is definitely right in line with the pivot of the machine. And again, it's all down to how works well for you, because something that works well for me might not work well for other people. But kind of me and all the clients that I work with, I find that if somebody hunches over, they tend to use a lot of momentum, rather than if they've got a really good, nice, strong core, nice neutral line, you're able to really work and fully connect hard with whatever muscle you're supposed to be working. So no matter what movement it is, you should have really good neutral spine, a real good posture for everything. So that's what I tried to reenact on here, having a real good posture, keeping my chest up nice and tall, keeping my hips back, a nice flat neutral line, nothing arch, nothing hunch, nothing, but just making sure that my core stays nice and tight. Before I go, what I think about is, where do I need to brace? And that's right at the bottom, because that's where it's going to be hardest. So my breath is right at the bottom. So my breath comes in there so that I'm nice and tight at the bottom, and then I let it out when I come back through. But just making sure that you're not hunching over, making sure that you're not using momentum, making sure that there's a little micro pause. Even if you're getting given pauses in the strength, in the lengthened, in the shortened by your coach, make sure there's a micro pause always, always, always in either of them, even if it's not being specified, to make sure that there's no momentum. If you use momentum on a movement like this, you're not going to isolate the hamstring. I talked a load of shit then, I'm sorry. Did I get to my point? Okay. Alright, okay, wonderful.
Oh yeah. One more rep, 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 one more rep. Stay tight. Be aggressive. Let's go. Right. Oh yeah. on, try.
Thank you.
What's going on here, Meg?
We're sorting out the contract for the new online coach and
Take one.
I'm just filling out the document for the contract. Contract document for the new online coach with MK Elite. And she's our new lifestyle coach, Charlotte Hudson. Hit us up if you want to have lifestyle coaching. Lifestyle coaching with MK Elite is actually quite different in that, obviously, and I speak for the majority, and I'm really sorry if it upsets you a bit if the shoe fits. Majoritively, lifestyle people get just given a plan that's pretty much generic, even diet and training, and we don't want that for the lifestyle clients that we want to work with. We want to work with people that want to train, that want to have an education around their nutrition. If you are getting a generic plan, you're not going to be able to make utmost progress that you possibly can. You're also not allowing yourself to really educate on what is kind of the goods and bads to do, how a macro works, how training works, how simple energy balance works. So what is the point in paying for a service that's just literally generic when you can have something that's tailored to you, where you actually can have a tap into someone one-to-one all of the time, learn from them, learn about training, learn about nutrition, and at the end of the day, if you want to enjoy the process of being a lifestyle client, you don't just have to do it. You can learn a little bit about it as well as having someone there to just do the plan for you and then probably tell you as to why it's happening as well, because I do find that not a lot of other lifestyle kind of coaching, and this is just based off feedback that I get from people who work with us, that they're not able to tell them why they're doing certain things. So I think it's important, and that's kind of the difference between the lifestyle coaching with MK and lifestyle coaching in the majority of other practices.
We are indeed ready, Meg.
So we have just finished hamstring day. I felt like the session went quite well. I really liked the change up from a single leg press to the high and wide leg press on the prime. Definitely felt much more hammy and glute. So I was really happy with that. It's always nice to feel where you're working, and I definitely don't get that with single leg press regardless of what machine I'm on. My quad just seems to want to take over. So yeah, if you can hear that savage drinking the drink, that is Zena. If you hate someone that slops on like I do, don't ever sit next to Zena when she's having a drink. So yeah, so that is hamstring day done. I'm going to eat my post-workout now. Then I'm going to have my second to last meal at 6, and then I'm going to eat my last meal at around 7:30, 7:45, get ready for bed and go to bed at 8. That's pretty much what we do, so that we can wake up nice and early for tomorrow to obviously start another working day. Thursday, which is tomorrow, is one of my heftier days. Kind of Tuesdays and Thursday my heftier days, so obviously try to make a conscious effort to be up and out of bed. Not that I'm never not, but just more of a conscious effort to be up and out of bed to make sure that we're cracking on nice and early to get all of the replies back to the clients, so that if they need to make any changes for the day, they're already there, start waiting for them as they wake up. So yeah, reflection on the day. The day has gone well. Everything's been done that needs to be done, apart from the fact that I've forgot Cuba's logbook again. So I'm gonna eat my food. Got some bits that I need to do this evening in terms of admin stuff again. Got some things to sort for the wedding, and then it'll be another day, another dollar tomorrow. I'm actually going to go and sort out some t-shirts for the coaching staff of MK tomorrow, which will be exciting. So I will show you those the next video. See you there. See you there. Come on, outside.